Hi, my name is Renee Moorfield. I am CEO of WisdomWorks. I've been reflecting on the question, what does it mean to thrive as a leader in a world without answers? In this month's conversation, I spoke with Andrew Hsu, president of the College of Charleston, whose journey from growing up during the Cultural Revolution in China to leading a 250 plus year old institution shaped a deeply grounded perspective on leadership. What stood out to me the most is this: thriving isn't built when things are easy. It's often forged in the very challenges we wouldn't choose. And today, as leaders, this means letting go of needing to have all the answers and instead growing our capacity to learn, to adapt, and to lead together. I think you'll find this conversation both real and relevant for the moment we're in. Well, I really appreciate your time. I know you're in the middle of a very, very busy time of year at the university and for yourself, and I really appreciate the time that you're taking. We have been interviewing leaders around the world for a while to understand what do they feel like it means to lead in the real complex world that we're in
Uh-huh.
now, and what does thriving mean to that leadership. So thank you for being willing to do this, have
Well,
this
thank
conversation.
you for including me in your series. I know you've been talking to a lot of leaders in the business world, and certainly appreciate your including me in this.
Well, thank you. So I sent you some questions. We will just go wherever this interview, takes us very
Okay.
organically.
Yeah.
But the first question I had for you is, I know your life journey has taken you across cultures and through many significant challenges, both from your birth in Beijing to now leading a major U.S. university. Looking back, what would you say are one to two pivotal experiences that most shaped you personally, and how did they influence the leader you are today? So we're diving right into the deep end, as you can tell, right?
Sure, sure.
Immediately.
Yeah, so I guess if you talk about what are sort of the pivoting moment that affected me as a person the most, I would point to something that is probably unfamiliar to your audience, or at least to the younger audience in the US. And that is, I grew up during the Cultural Revolution in a family that is sort of on the receiving side of the chaotic persecution that was meted out during that 10-year period of time. But I want to say that that I now look back and I see that as a positive thing that helped me really develop optimism and resilience and just not give up in front of a difficult or challenging situation. So all those hardship in childhood was really, really difficult at the time, but yet I do think that the fact that I'm the person that I am now is partially due to those hardship that I experienced.
And how
And
did it
and then
shape how
the
you lead? How did that period of time or that experience shape how you lead that challenging time?
Yeah, so I think certainly that allowed me, that really allowed me to really humble myself and know that, nobody is above history or larger society organization. And so when I lead, I tend to lead more from the sort of servant leader model where I seek consensus and I seek support from the broad base of your constituencies. Um, I think that it definitely affected my leadership style.
Yeah, so Andrew, so you mentioned optimism, resilience, and then humility, which is all three are incredible qualities. of leadership. How do you bring those to play when there are setbacks or kind of complexities today? Because right now, I know many organizations, but particularly universities, are in a very complex
Mhm.
time around the world, but definitely in our nation. And I'm wondering how those three qualities, optimism, resilience, humility, are supporting you right now.
Right. So I think certainly with resilience, you then can handle setbacks and failures much better. And also with resilience, you're more willing to um, take the necessary risk to try new things and be willing to accept the potential failures that's associated with trying new things. And the other thing I think really is with humility, you realize that nobody knows everything. Nobody knows the right answer, and therefore one is more willing to learn from your peers, your even the people who work with you and work for you, uh, and you're more willing to learn from failure, but also adjust your approaches, pursue better outcomes, whichever way is better, because you're not afraid of admitting your mistakes and not afraid of changing the approach.
I'm appreciating what you're saying because so many leaders that I get to talk to and work with would often say in when it's complex, sometimes you just need to put your head down, you work harder, you keep doing what you're doing, you focus, and this too shall pass. And what I hear you saying is when it's complex, it's really an opportunity to say, I don't know all the answers, and to innovate and to reach out to others and to create more, kind of the intelligence between people.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think to me, I think just hunker down and try to keep your head down and continue to do the same thing that you are doing before. Uh, to me, that's the wrong approach, right?
Mhm.
So you want to figure out a better solution. I do believe that in every situation, there are many different solutions. In fact, I was talking to some of our students this morning, and I told them that oftentimes in the real world, it's not like in the math class or doing some math homework, there's a right solution, there's a wrong solution. In real life, there are oftentimes no good solution, a series of bad solutions that you have to choose from, and you have no other choice, right? So that's one thing, and you have to be able to deal with ambiguity. And the other thing really is that there are some study that says a group can make a better decision than a single person. And if you have the humility to admit that I do not know everything, I don't have all the solutions, then one is more willing to work with a larger group and find a better solution.
That's wonderful. I wish I could inject everything you just said into so many of us, so many of us, so that we really understood what you're saying. Besides your background, the challenges that we've talked about in your life and what you learned and how you gained through those challenges, are there any practices you do today that help you stay balanced and centered and kind of self-regulated and willing to say, I don't know? Are there things that help you every day?
Yeah, so certainly I think in terms of help stay centered and stay healthy and all of that. I think I try to remind myself every day it's not about me. right? So
Yeah.
in fact, in our one of our recent retreat, somebody had the wisdom to put a small framed um, sort of a small frame with not about me in front of every participant. And that's really what I tell everybody, not everybody, tell myself every day. And you have, of course, to treat what you do very seriously, but you really can't treat yourself too seriously because otherwise you would not be able to stay calm, especially in complex situations where every decision you make, you probably would be offending half of the people who work for your institution. And there's just no way that you can, throughout your career as a leader, to please everyone. And you just have to develop that mentality, and that's what could help you balance um, balance your sort of mental state when you work. And the other thing really is that on a personal level, you have to um, develop an identity, develop a hobby um, outside of
Mm,
your work. So,
mhm,
I always enjoy spending time with my family. I just ran the Charleston Cooper River Bridge Run 10K race. I developed some hobbies, listening to music and so forth. I continue to be curious and want to learn language, learn through reading all sorts of books. I think all of those really would help one to balance, to have a work-life balance, which I think is extremely important for today's leaders, especially academic leaders, where we know that academic institutions, as you mentioned earlier at the beginning, that are facing a lot of real challenges that are sort of occasionally mind-boggling.
Well, I love that you brought up identity and the importance of having an identity that
Mhm.
is beyond your, or that these are now my words, but beyond your role or beyond your organization, but having an identity that's a larger self.
Right,
Because I notice how important that is just in kind of in our life journey, period, but especially for senior executives and really leaders at all levels to realize that you aren't your job.
right,
You aren't your
right.
job, you aren't your organization,
Yeah,
you aren't your team, and there is something greater. You are something greater than that. And that
exactly.
really, hits your identity. What other shifts would you say are important for leaders to kind of in this very complex, disruptive, but also innovative time? What other shifts in either behaviors or mindset do you think are important?
Yeah, so I think a couple of things, as you mentioned, this world is becoming ever more complex, but in addition to that, it's changing ever more rapidly, especially since the large language model and AI and ChatGPT and all of that. So I think a couple of things that are important to today's leaders is one, one must be data informed, and you have to make decisions based on more on data and less on solely on past experience. And the other thing, of course, is just have the mentality and recognize the fact that the landscape, especially in higher education, is just changing so rapidly, and we can no longer uh, practice the same practice leadership the same way we did 10 or 20 years ago. One difficulty, one challenge for higher education really is that higher education is by design a very, very slow moving institution, right? So, you have all these shared governance, you have, faculty controlled curricula and curriculum issues, and then um, you have a board of trustees that has to approve any major changes. You have the state who sort of controls what you can and cannot offer for public institutions. So it's a very slow moving system by design, but that's not going to help you adjust to today's world. That's
Mm.
not going to position your institution to serve the student population today or to produce the workforce that our society needs. So we just need to adjust our thinking to figure out how do you make rapid changes in such a slow system.
Hmm.
And that I think is extremely important to today's world. In fact, one of my mentors, a previous university president, used to say that, we either have to make changes very quickly or we're going to become dinosaurs.
Hmm.
So if you want to stay relevant, you'd better make rapid changes that is consistent with the rapid changes we see surrounding us in the real world.
Yeah, you're really naming, for me at least, a huge paradox of a system that was designed purposefully to be resilient. In resilient may mean slower moving,
Right, right.
enduring,
Mm-hmm.
and but at the same time you need to innovate.
Right,
So because the world's changing so fast and you are producing the leaders of the future,
right.
right there at your university.
Yeah.
So I am really curious. I didn't know we were going to go here, but I'm curious how you plan to do that.
Yeah, so as I repeatedly um, said in our faculty senate, for example, and told my leadership team, I said, the College of Charleston is a 256-year-old institution. We're one of the oldest in the country, and clearly tradition is one of the most important factors in our success, but also it's one of the most important considerations in our decision making in what we do on a daily basis. But I remind people every time I have the opportunity that our oldest tradition on this campus is innovation.
Hmm.
And from the time we founded the university to the multiple times when this university made fundamental changes of its nature, of its curriculum, of its of what it offers in terms of programs, we have never stopped reinvent ourselves.
Hmm.
And as a result, um, we do see that mentality change. Yes, we need to change. Yes, we actually need to change rapidly. So the only way that you can make that faster change is that if you have the buy-in up and down the system, all the way from faculty and staff to leadership team to the board, everybody has to have the buy-in in order to effect fast changes.
Yeah, so what you're making me think of is the importance of literally holding both poles of that paradox. Like it's really important that you have 256 years of tradition. The
Right,
DNA of the university is incredible. I've been able to experience it, and it's really a campus, not just a beautifully built campus, but filled with wonderful people. You can
right,
feel that environment. And the other pole is this now, how can we look at the student experience, the academic experience, the faculty experience, everyone's experiences, and know that there's opportunities for continual growth and continual innovation. So
Right.
it's holding both those poles together.
Yeah.
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 I know that much of your impact happens through other people. So I'm wondering, and you've mentioned that, how important humility is to be able to bring people together. What have you learned that would be helpful to other senior leaders of any organization, university or not, about creating the conditions culturally and structurally where people can grow and thrive together? You know, they can grow, they can really contribute, and they can thrive.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things. One is that as a leader, you have to have a very simple sort of formula as to how you think about your own leadership. And to me, I have again learned this 20 years ago from my mentor that there are three things that are important, right? One is you have to have that clear vision for the institution so that people know where the institution is going and there's buy-in on that. So articulate a clear vision is the number one important role of a leader. And the number two really is what we are talking about here. That is, you have to build a very strong leadership team because no leader as a person can really affect the changes that one needs to make for such a large institution with tens of thousands of students and thousands of employees. So that leadership team become very important. And the third piece, of course, is the leader has to be visible so that there is a culture of um, collaboration. Everybody is talking with everybody up and down, and it doesn't matter if someone is a custodial service personnel or a well-known professor. We're all here to serve the students. So then going back to the culture of the leadership team, um, so a couple of things. I do not want to have a leadership team that all think like me. I'm an engineering geek, I'm a data geek, and I think a certain way. And and I can't have everybody on my team think the way I think because if so, then we have a very one-dimensional solution to every problem we have. So, instead, I have English majors, we have communication majors, we have, you know, all these different business majors and so forth. So, uh, I have my provost as a historian. So, I think a diverse group of leaders working together would be the best way to come up with the most effective solutions when you have an issue. And the other thing, of course, is sort of consensus building, that which means that there has to be a lot of discussions, sometimes heated discussions. My direct reports know that I tend to want to challenge their thinking and they tend to want to just challenge what I'm saying. And then we have a healthy argument where eventually, if I'm wrong, I certainly will admit that I'm wrong. But on the other hand, once we have sort of made a decision, everybody has to get behind it, whether you think it's the right decision or the wrong decision. And the last thing I think is really important is that you really have to also be thinking about your team members, your employees, what's their career goal, what is the development, self-development opportunities, whether it's personal or career-wise, what are the leaders providing the team? or what
Mhm.
is the leader providing the team with. And so I always, whenever there's an opportunity, talk to my team members and, how can I support them so that they have the opportunity to advance in their career and in their personal interest.
You know what you that the last statement you said reminds me of a comment you made earlier about identity. And
Hmm.
we were talking about how important it is to have an identity as a leader beyond your job, to have a whole life and see yourself not just as your job. And we are finding in our work with leaders and really with just human beings how important that is for everybody.
Right,
To have a vision and purpose that guides your life and work. And when that get vision and purpose, when you're in an organization that your vision and purpose guiding your life and work is connected to the organization's,
right,
there's people can be on fire. They're so excited
right.
to go to work because they see the benefit, the real benefit of being there and contributing. It's a way to contribute their life energy.
And also, I just want to add that when they see that they're contributing, and when they uh, feel like they have the input, and by which you also get the buy-in from them, and then when they see that they are empowered to make local decisions and are allowed to take measured risks and allowed to make mistakes. That also makes things work a lot better as a team.
Yeah, yeah, that's incredible. That creates an incredible, truly thriving organization. So for yourself, as you continue to grow as a leader and a human being, what are you in the middle of still learning right now? And like where do you feel most stretched or challenged in this particular chapter of your own journey?
Well, as you mentioned that I have, I guess, try to cross cultures and manage across cultures and so forth. So to me, as a person, I'm always challenging myself in trying to have a broader sense of the various cultures that is in our world and try to better understand. So as a result, I read all kinds of books about different topics that help me better understand the people around me that I'm working with. And the other thing, of course, is I really do think that AI is changing the world.
Hmm.
And there are certainly a lot of efficiencies brought on by AI, but there are also a lot of dangerous uh, trend that is developed and encouraged by AI. So I'm always trying to educate myself, and I'm always trying to uh, I get trying to better understand what is the current development in terms of AI and how that can help us enhance our work or quality of life, and how that will affect the future of workforce development. I do think that this new generation of college grads are um, entering into a world that is very different from the world that we entered into when we graduated from college.
Hmm.
Um, and as an educator and us as a university or a higher ed institution, we really need to better educate ourselves to understand the future needs and this changing society to better prepare our students for their future.
Yeah, when you talk about servant leadership earlier, I think of you and university leaders and actually business leaders as well as stewards, as real stewards, because these are places where people are being shaped, they're growing, They are their mindsets and their behaviors are taking now on a particular trajectory,
Right.
and how important it is to be able to steward that really well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said.
Well, I appreciate our time, Andrew, and I'm wondering, is there anything that you want to say about thriving in leadership that maybe I didn't ask you?
Well, I think again, um, if one is an aspiring leader, one has to be willing to get outside of their comfort zone, and oftentimes, I think you see a lot of emotional issues these days among our college students. And a lot of that, I believe, is the unwillingness to get outside of your comfort zone and
Mm,
prefer the bubble that one is in. And I think for leaders, if one wants to be successful, one really needs to be willing to proactively get outside of one's comfort zone.
yeah, yeah, to learn. I mean,
Right,
it's back to learning and growing
right.
that you
Yeah.
described earlier.
Yeah.
I so appreciate the time. I really do. And your insights. And just thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Again, good to see you virtually.
You too.